How are you doing, guys? Danny here from Sick Biker Studio. Yesterday I just started this series of episodes about bikes till X amount of money. The first one was dedicated to road bikes for roughly $500. And you already requested the cross-country bikes for $500. I'm gonna make the episode about MTBs for $500, but this episode is about why there is no $500 cross-country bikes, okay? I'm gonna show you 5 features of the mountain bikes you can buy even on sale for $500, which they don't have and will not make those capable of racing in cross-country, okay? So first, just a couple of words about what cross-country is. If you're not familiar with cross-country and you think that all bikes which are not downhill bikes are XC, cross-country is a super tough race on a very tough technical course. It is almost like a connection between the downhill and the uphill in one race. Some technical parts of the downhill, the descents on cross-country races are like from downhill, really. And downhill riders, pro riders, would say that, yeah, they will be easily able to go through the cross-country track, but not on the cross-country bike. And so the cross-country bike, so XC bicycle, needs to be pretty good in both climbing, very steep climbs, and descending, very steep descents, jumping, pretty high jumps, and going through some drops, pretty high drops, and finally lots of roots and rocks like rock garden on pretty high speed, not like 10 kilometers per hour, but high speed through the rocks. So these bikes have to be tough and also have to have the number one feature which $500 mountain bike won't have, which is the geometry. Okay, the $500 bike are made for beginners cyclists. So just check it out on my other movies. It's all in the description what you should watch next. The beginner's mountain bike will be pretty upright. You're gonna have to be pretty comfortable just to see what mountain biking is, going through some easy trails, not the descents and steep climbs as on the cross-country bikes. And so the geometry of the cross-country bike is much more like stretching you forward. It does give you a little bit of a pain on those steep, super steep climbs, so the more upright position would be actually maybe better, but then you need to be able to climb well on the bike. So the geometry of the bike, cross-country bike, will pretty much allow you to do both. And don't simply assume that, okay, so if the 500 MTB is not good for climbing, it will be better for technical descents. Not really. These bikes have to be agile and still pretty stable. So all the angles you've got on this bike is actually made for these super tough corners and high speed. This is what cross-country bike is all about. 500 MTB is just about starting with some easy trails and putting you into easy position, not for technical trails. Now we have 4 features left. Let me show you in details what these features are, and $500 won't give you any of these. I'm very often saying that it would be much better to buy a $500 mountain bike with the rigid fork rather than the one with the suspension fork, because the suspension forks on the 500 mountain bikes are the weakest link on that bikes. Check out my video with the most disadvantages of cheap coil forks. Number one thing here is the stanchions. So this is the upside down fork, but on most forks, or just $500 bike with the fork, this would be on the upper end of the fork, and its diameter makes the fork either stiff or very flexible. For cross-country standard, this diameter, so the thickness of this whole tube, is 32 millimeters. 32 millimeters, that's what my RS1 has. But on the $500 bike, you would either have 30 millimeter stanchions or 28 millimeter stanchions, which is not made for rough terrain. If you saw my stiffness comparison between different forks, the front wheel behaves like crazy on the fork, which is not very stiff. And there was no 30mm stanchions fork on that comparison. So 30 or 28 would be really bad for you if riding a cross-country track, because you would not have really precision in steering, and while braking, the fork will just twist a lot. So I even don't understand why $500 so-called mountain bikes will have 28mm stanchions. It is way too thin. 30 is the minimum, in my opinion. 28 is okay for trekking bikes, not for mountain bikes, but definitely not for cross-country bikes. And then the second thing on the fork, so that's still the second feature, is the coil spring. I mean, the whole fork in the bike for $500 will be very heavy. It will be over 2.5 kilograms. This one is between 16 and 1700 grams, and let's say 1800 grams is okay for entry-level cross-country bike. 2.5, 2.7 is just a lot, and that's what you find on $500 bike, because those will have inside the coil spring. These forks are running on the air spring, which makes so much difference in terms of the weight as well. I'm always saying the weight is not the most important part, but on the cross-country track, if you have 11.5 kilo bike and 15 kilos bike, that will make a difference. Okay? Feature number 3, pretty important one, is the wheels. You can now buy 29er bike for $500, no problem. But you're not gonna have, most likely, you're not gonna have the rims tubeless ready and the tires tubeless ready, and so you are running with the inner tubes. Almost nobody now is using inner tubes for cross-country bikes. Lots of roots, lots of rocks, where you very often hit the obstacle that as hard, so that your tire will be completely deflexed up to the rim. So the tire will hit the rim even. And if you have the inner tube, that means end of a race for you. Number 2 thing is that if you have a tubeless system, you can have lower tire pressure, which is much safer for you. It gives you more comfort and traction. Okay, so we've got the geometry, we've got the fork, we have the tubeless system, and then the drivetrain. So on the $500 bike, you're not gonna have drivetrain, which will be capable of riding through some very, very tough courses. What that means? Mainly, it's not even the chainring. The chainrings could be even the same. You can have triple crankset in the front, no problem. You can have 8 gears in the rear, no problem. But you need a very stable rear derailleur, at the very least. And the stable rear derailleurs come usually with the bikes from costing at least $800 or so. This will have additional clutch. That means that this chain will be pretty stable on some bumpy terrain. If you ride fast through bumpy terrain and you don't have some strong springs and the clutch in the rear derailleur, that means you're gonna have your chain drop off, and that's pretty bad. You can also, in that way, you can also damage your drivetrain, your derailleur, in some cases also the derailleur hanger, in really bad cases also the frame. So this is very important feature that more expensive bikes will have, and you need those for cross-country racing. This is true, and it is no marketing game here. This is really true. You need the geometry, which is safe and especially good for climbing. You need the fork, which is stiff and safe for you, which will give you the precision. You need tubeless system, and you need some stable drivetrain. And as I said, maybe that's the 5th feature. The weight overall of the bike also matters there. Just a bit, because still you're gonna have some 70 kilo riders on the same track and 80 kilo riders on the same track. So it's 10 kilo difference, but 4 kilo difference between the bikes can matter also, because especially on those steep climbs, you're gonna feel it. And then the last thing, just to sum it up, is that, for example, Shimano say that it is the SLX upwards group sets which are really made for some rough MTB riding. DRE down the range are not made for that stuff. So if you have $500 bikes, it's gonna come with Alivio derailleur, which I do like, which is awesome, amazing, but it's not designed for some tough terrain. So this thing you should be aware of, and then on the next episode you're gonna see these about $500 mountain bikes. Very cool, I do recommend those, but these are just not cross-country mountain bikes. Thanks for watching, guys, and check out the post I'm now putting on my community, how is it called, timeline, because there is still the contest on. I have extended the contest, so just read anything I'm publishing there, and I'm gonna see you on the next episode, $500 mountain bikes. See ya, guys, bye bye.